good. But what I'm trying to say is that we need to find a working modality to prevent us from having again a situation where we have this issue. Thanks.
Yes, actually, in the background note, like a secretariat proposed that we will set up like a working modality and requesting like a comment and observation by the parties and also other entities, and with a fixed deadline and with a rationale, and so that the members can also co-facilitators can examine well in advance this comment. And also the Secretariat has a database of previous guidance decision that we can really check these comments are in line with previous decision or not. That would facilitate the process. And then we'd like to make the document on the consensus basis. So that is one option proposed by the Secretariat, but would like to hear your views, please.
Other comments? I would like to raise another issue before we finalize this and enjoy the late afternoon sunshine. And that is on the other end of the spectrum. Previously, I spoke of the small projects, the micro projects rather, but there's also the mega projects that are approved in the GCF, which tend to be combos of many countries and many executing entities. We've seen these from the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. We've seen this from a Dutch cooperation agency. Most recently, we saw one from AFD of France. These projects have a model that tends to make the GCF a third floor bank. So the GCF gives the money to AFD that then is going to stimulate climate finance in a series of banks by passing this money on to these banks. Then these banks have their customers and give loans to those customers. The comment I wish to make is that the overhead of the GCF is 4%. For projects that have more than $300 million, which are these projects, the limit on the commission is 3%. The AFD obviously is going to have an overhead on this. Let's suppose for a moment that it's the same as the Green Climate Fund, for sake of argument. But it would be very interesting to find out what that is. Let's say it's 4%. Then we have 11% accumulated there, and the bank at the end is going to have an interest rate. This bank is not going to not cover itself, so it has an interest rate. That interest rate might be what? 8%, 7%, 6%. Let's put it very concessionally at 5% the interest rate, but it also has an overhead that it should try to cover with that, let's say. So this puts us up to 16%. And that is not reasonable. 16% administrative costs to deliver the funding to the ground. And this might be quite conservative. that the lower end of the food chain here, the interest rate might be higher, and the AFD's charge is limited by the Green Climate Fund, but it might have other hidden costs of overhead too. A good cost accounting on this would be very interesting. And it would be good if the Secretariat could charge that to someone. But anyway, I would argue that at a minimum, this is 16% of overhead. And I think we should be careful to make sure that the funding hits the ground, hits actual action in terms of climate action. Further comments or issues?
Just to note then that in terms of the SCF program, we have to conclude, or we do our draft guidance at the 21st meeting, which is in September, which is probably before all these other things are going to, and I imagine the outcomes of the replenishment is going to precipitate a lot of other.
We may not have another SCF meeting after the September, so we need to complete.
So just think about.
Yeah, we need to complete the draft guidance ready for the submission at the September meeting. That's correct, Secretary?
Correct to the extent that the next meeting of the SCF is tentatively in the third week of September, but it has to be finalized by the SCF tomorrow.
But be careful with the Secretary General Summit, which is in that time period also.
23rd.
Some members have raised that concern, and then they would like to revisit.
Please take that very much into consideration, because you shouldn't ask the members to have to choose between the Secretary General's Summit on climate change and coming to the SCF meeting. That should be avoided at all costs.
Okay, any further comment, observation from the floor? I see now, so
I would like to make one comment.
Okay.
On this Secretary General Summit. I think that's going to be a very important moment for the GCF replenishment, because it's a meeting of heads of state and heads of government. The pledging conference is not going to be heads of state and heads of government. It's going to be ministers and ambassadors. So to have all of these heads of state to government together is a great opportunity to move forward pledging, even before the pledging conference for the GCF replenishment. And if there could be a dynamic, group dynamic there of them working together, they might be more ambitious and maybe some even audacious in terms of their responses, which could be very good. Ivan has asked for the floor.
Yeah, Paul, thank you. Just to flag out that next week, the Latin American Extended Constituency Workshop is going to take place on, regarding the GEF. So probably there will be a lot of inputs that will come out from that discussion that could be helpful for further guidance into the GEF in the future.
Thank you. Any other opinion? Hyman, do you have any comment on the guidance to the bodies of the financial mechanism?
Well, thank you very much.
About to wrap up here. So
yeah, thank you very much. Again, we really want to, adhere to our standard practices that we do not micromanage, but we really want to make sure that we give adequate guidance, clear guidance, that, keep those institutions to be operating entities of the fund. There is so much happening at the climate finance landscape out there. This year is actually, as you said, it's very exceptional year with the climate summit, whereby there is a lot of expectations will be established on what those institutions can do for us. So we really want to take this into account, that we need to step up the ambition on those institutions through the guidance. And the guidance will, of course, this year will have to reflect on the replenishment process that will take care. I mean, it will take place this year. The COP will come after the completion of the replenishment. So I think we need to be mindful of that, of the timing, the sequence, because
we discussed that.
Discussed it. Thank you very much. We need to really be mindful of the fact that we will take stock of the replenishment, and then we reflect, the feedback on the guidance itself that will go to the operating entities. And we just want to, make sure that we come up with as clean text as possible from our side as SCF, and try to overcome this difficulties of negotiating and renegotiating again at the COP. I hate to say it, but if we're going to negotiate anyways, we might as well not do anything here and just take it there. But this is not good. This is not good. It is our primary mandate as a standing committee in finance. Perhaps if there is one important mandate, is that it would be providing guidance to the operating entities, because this is the only means of communication between the COP and the operating entities is through the guidance. There is no other means of communication other than the guidance to those entities. So we look forward to devising good guidance this year that at least would meet the expectations of the parties, because they need to update their indices next year, and we really want to make sure that we reflect on that. That next year is going to be exceptional. People are expected to raise their ambition, and in the absence of clarity and good governance and good outcome from those operating entities, we will not be able to achieve that. I'll just leave it there, and we'll come back to it at a later time, perhaps. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ayman. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Paul. My name is Jan Willem van Ven, EBRD.
Thank you.
I have been listening to the various comments and statements. That's why it's clear to us, of course, there is the prerogative of the COP and then of the GCF board or the GEF council, etc. Me being silent doesn't mean that we agree or disagree. I think we will come to that point when we see text, and then let's say, as an observer, we would like to contribute to that discussion and come, let's say, with suggestions that we think are helpful in the process. Thank you.
If there's no further observations, Ayman?
The question, will we be able to get an initial draft of the guidance before we get the report of those operating entities, or we have to wait until we get the reports? Is there any way of us see where we can kickstart the process and then we can update it when we get the report from the operating entities, and then we can update it further perhaps after the replenishment?
The current practice has been that once the operating entities report come in, then parties and SCF members and AC and the tech, they would consider those reports in preparing the draft guidance. That has been the practice so far. And then the issuance of addendum is another story, because if the addendums are sometimes issued before the SCF, then that's great. But then if not, then the SCF, the draft guidance is prepared without consideration of addendum reports, and then went straight to the COP.
Any further observations? If not, then I turn the floor back over to Todu.
Thank you, Paul. So I'd like to make a summary of this today's discussion. And we are trying to make efficient as possible the good guidance to both GCF, GEF, and this year on the basis of sound and good discussion among the SCF members. And regarding the modality to make two set of guidance, one to HOP and CMA, we have taken a proposition by the members that we make a common part, and then we are trying to add addendum that is parts which are specific to either HOP or CMA. And also for the improvement of quality of the draft text, we take a point of the option made by the Secretariat in this background note that we try to set the specific date and for the comment by the parties and operating entities, and also ask them to submit the comment with rationale behind that comment. Also, we like to make use of the database available at the Secretariat to check if efficiently these comments are made previously or not, or quite in line with that past decision, past guidance. And we make a try, and then we will see that we try to finalize and discuss and finalize the draft guidance at the next September SCF meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And enjoy your sunny afternoon.
Thank you.
And we're ahead of the specialty law.